Okay, what up YouTube? So I have a new quadcopter build video for you. And I thought I would start out with a little introduction. These are my first FPV goggles I bought. They're Fat Shark Predator V2s. And I bought them in a combo kit. And I just checked the price. I paid $280 for these transmitter, which was one of those big immersion RC 600 milliwatt transmitters, and a camera, and it also came with this power regulator board that worked off the balance connector of your battery, and that's how you powered it. And when I got into FPV and built my first Blackout, this is what I invested in because I didn't want to invest too much into it. I think the Dominator V2s were the high-end Fat Shark goggles at the time, but I didn't want to spend all that money, so I bought this set, and it worked pretty good for me. And then eventually I wanted to upgrade, so what I bought was the Attitude V4s that came out, and I put a Diversity True 3D, True D. I forget what receiver it is. It's the Diversity, I think it's True D receiver. And this is what I fly with currently. And the reason I went with the Attitudes was because I was afraid of going away. These are 4x3 screens, and these are 4x3 screens. I was afraid of doing the 16:9. I didn't want to have a stretched out video. You know, I don't mind 16:9 if it's actually 16:9, but when you take a 4:3 camera and stretch it out, I didn't want that. But these had DVR in them. That's another reason why I bought them. And they worked great too. And the fan in Florida works great for not fogging up. These, they just always fog up. So anyway, I've been thinking about upgrading my equipment because I've been having a couple fail-safe issues, and I really enjoy this hobby, and I don't mind. I know that I'm going to be in this hobby for a while, so I was thinking about upgrading my equipment. So I've been having a couple of fail-safes, so I was thinking about upgrading my receivers, and I had a fail-safe that broke a lens of a GoPro, unnecessary fail-safe. So that was kind of like my tipping point of, okay, I'm going to upgrade my receivers, I'm going to upgrade my equipment. And while I was doing that and I was looking at what they had in stock, I figured, well, I'm just going to go ahead and make the jump. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So I bought the DJI goggles V2. I'm going to go digital. And I never flown digital before, so I don't know exactly what to expect. I was flying with Flow Rider, and he let me look at his DVR through the goggles to see what it was like, and it was pretty impressive. So I just figured I'm just going to throw all caution to the wind. I'm tired. I never have good video. Even like me and Staceman were flying in a parking garage the other day, and I had horrible video, and it wasn't my goggles because I tuned in on his feed and he had good video. I just never have good video with analog, and I tried, all the tricks in the past. And so I figured if I'm going to start upgrading my equipment and build the perfect quad, I'm just going to go digital. So that's the intro to this video. I'm going to build my first digital quad, and let me get the parts out, and let's begin. Okay, this is my current radio, the Tyrannus, and I did update the gimbals in this, and I put new stick ends on it, and I made the stick ends longer because at the time I thought I wanted more throw. But lately I feel like I just can't get a good grip on the Tyrannus. And I also have a weird problem since I do like a hybrid pinch thing, that when I go to full, I end up hitting, my fingers hit. So instead of trying to like put a module in the back of this, I decided to just start over with a whole nother radio. And the reason I decided to do that is because of the TBS Mambo. The fact that you don't need an antenna, it's all built in. So let's do a little unboxing. Oh. Am I opening it up upside down? Oh, there we go. And I just got the regular one. I didn't feel that it was worth the extra money for the Escs version. Allen key, throttle limitation screws, and another spring set. That's pretty much it. Let me feel it. So are these adjustable? Yeah, they are adjustable. And the thing is, the problem I have with the Tyrannus, and maybe I can fix the problem with here, is that you need to plate, when you grab the controller, you need to grab the controller in the same spot every single time to be consistent. So hopefully, and I can always put the stick ends on my Tyrannus on here, but I'm going to start with the stock stick ends. And after I bought this, I didn't realize that it didn't come with oh yeah, the switches are nice and firm. I didn't realize it didn't come with any batteries, so I had to put in an order for Get FPV anyway, so I got the best batteries I could, the Panasonic's 35 milliampere hour. But it's kind of cool that you don't have any like you don't have anything, you know, sticking out from the controller. I never did update my battery in my Tyrannus. I'm still rocking that nickel metal halide battery that it came with. And the first power on? Is it going to power on? Or do I have to read the manual?
Welcome to Mambo.
Oh, there it is.
Throttle warning.
Okay, I'm going to go and put a good charge on that battery. And actually, I wanted to unbox this first because I'm going to start playing in the sim again. I stopped playing in Velocidrome because I didn't think it was that accurate. But I found out that I didn't have my settings right. So I'm going to change my settings and I'm going to try to practice more in the sim. And I want to change up my rates too. I want to reevaluate my rates because I don't think I have my rates set up the most efficient that I can. So that'll be my new controller. Okay, so here's all the parts. So I actually started buying parts for this quad before I realized that I was going to build a digital quad, because I was going to build a third quad because I wanted to get away from the FR Sky transmitter. So I thought I would experiment with Express LRS. And I knew that that would be a pain in the butt to set up. So I thought, well, I'll build a third quad to be able to set up Express LRS and be able to take my time and not feel like I need to rush because I don't have a quad to fly. And actually that mentality I'm going to carry through with this build. I'm going to take my time on this build and try to put it together right and nice and neat and try to have it all figured out and you know, tune it right, because I already have my Apex quads. I have 2 Apex quads in the air, so I'm not in a hurry to actually you know, to fly because I'm currently flying. So I'm just going to take my time and try to set this up right. But I already started to purchase parts for that build, but never got around to building it or finishing it. And I decided to go back. I thought the X-Hover Stingy frames were no more when I came back into this hobby, because when I first came back into the hobby this year, you couldn't get them, they weren't for sale, and then Stingy was a posting. So I figured maybe they just gave up on it. But it turns out they're still making them. So when they came into stock, I ordered a frame. And I'm not a fan of the Apex frames. They just are a little too cramped. They don't have enough room. And I don't like the split bottom plate. It just makes it too complicated. When I originally had a Stingy V1, and I actually have a YouTube video building that. And I bought that when that first came out. And I really enjoyed that frame. So I figured stick with stuff that I enjoy. And I think it's a good frame. So the V2, I guess they fixed some problems with the top plate and what have you that was weak on the V1. So I'm going to put it all in a Stingy V2. The motors, so on my last build, I had T-Motor V-Locks 1750 kV motors, and they were good until you crashed. I had a big problem with those motors that the bell will actually come down and hit the coils on the motor and then break the coils in half. So I needed to find a replacement. So I've already been flying these on one quad. I converted one quad over, and I kind of like them. They're Xing 1800 kV 2207 Xing E Pro, so they're economy motors. So they're actually cheaper than the V-Loxes, and they've been pretty good. And I haven't messed one up yet on the one quad I fly. So that's what I'm going to have for the motors. I just have some LED strips that I got off of Amazon. And I'm going to put LED strips on the quad just to jazz it up some. That's something I haven't been doing recently. And I decided to go back, get away from the 4-in-1 ESCs and go back to single ESCs. And that's the advantage of the X-Hover Stingy frame, is that you can put individual ESCs on the arms. Arms are thick enough. On the Apexes, you can't put individual ESCs on. And I really like Holy Bro stuff. It's just been good for me in the past. So I just got the Teco BL Heli 32 ESCs from Holy Bro, and they say they're 35 amp. And then another thing is, though, when you go to the single ESCs, you have a hard time finding all-in-one flight controllers, or you need like a power distribution board. But Holy Bro, their Kakuti F7, I use the mini V3 version on my current builds, and like on that Blackout I built, I used the all-in-one, and this one here is all-in-one, but it's all-in-one for this is the HD version. So this is an all-in-one flight controller, but it's for DJI. So I thought that was pretty cool that they made that. And yeah, I wanted to get back to using single ESCs. And at the time, I was thinking about doing an analog build, single ESCs analog build, and use RunCam split, which I'm not going to do that anymore because I'm going digital. But I did decide to buy the Polar Vista kit, and I was going back and forth. It seems like, so on Stingy went digital, and he uses the Vistas and he puts them in the back. If you buy a digital from X-Hover themselves, they use the air unit, and what they do is they put the ESCs in the center, they put a 20x20 flight controller in the back, and then they have a 3D printed mount for the air unit, but that takes up a lot of room, and I didn't really like how that was, and they don't have the files for the 3D printed files, so I didn't like the fact that you had to buy 3D printed parts. That's going to make them. So, and then as you guys know, with the whole air units and the Vistas, that you can't get the Nebula Pro camera on a Vista. You can only get it on the air unit. So I did factor that into it because a lot of the people don't like the Polars. But then when I actually was watching in-flight footage of the Polars, I started thinking that people were actually nitpicking a little too much about the Polars. So I just decided to throw all caution into the wind, and I just picked up this kit because this is my first time going digital, so it's probably going to look good no matter what. but we'll see if I regret that or not. So I am going to put a Vista in it, and I'm going, like I said, I'm going to try to make this a neat build. I'm going to attempt to try to stack the Vista on top of the flight controller. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but if I do that, it's going to allow a lot more room for the receiver and the cap. Either that, or I put the Vista unit in the back, which the Stingy has a 20 by 20 mount on the back, and then I make some kind of 3D printed mount for the receiver and the capacitor over top of the flight controller. So, like I said, those are details that I'm just going to take my time and try to work out. My goal is to have a nice, clean build. With my Apex builds, when you take the top plate off, you're like stuffing stuff back in to put the top plate back on. My goal is to have a build that I can just cleanly take the whole top plate off, and everything would be nice and secure, and I don't have to feel like I'm stuffing things into each other. In the past, it seems like I've never been good on clean builds, but I'm going to try to take my time, do a nice clean build. You know, going to try to 3D print instead of having stuff stuck together with double-sided tape. I'm going to try to 3D print mounts and stuff. So I've been using these Wi-Fi finders, and I used the version 2 in the past. And when I went to buy one for this build, I saw that they have a compact model. So I just went and I bought the mini instead. And then for receivers, obviously I'm switching over from FR Sky, and I decided to go with Tracer because I don't think I really need the crossfire, the range on the crossfire, and people have good luck with these tracers, so I figured I'd stick with the Tracer. Okay, I've been doing a lot of figuring out, and I really don't have anything to show for it, but hopefully we can start assembling. So first thing I had to do is I had to figure out how high my stack's going to be, since some of the arm screws are used for the stack. So I decided I have enough room to mount the Tracer Nano receiver underneath the flight controller. So I found this off of Thingiverse, this 30 by 30 Tracer Nano mount, and I kind of like it. So what I did already is I put conformal coat on the back side of the receiver, let it dry out in the sun. I soldered the front, so I soldered it before I put the conformal coat on the front. But what I'm going to do now is hook up the antennas, because a trick that I was told about, and I haven't done this myself yet at all, is to secure the antennas to the receiver using E6000, because if you do that, when you want to, it keeps them from falling out. And then when you want to remove them, all you had to do is put a little isopropyl alcohol in the E6000, and it will come undone. So let me see if I can plug these in. Another thing is I want to have these plugged in before I conformal coat the top, so I don't get any conformal coating in the connector. Although these have a really good, really secure click. Both of them did. But I think I'm going to do it just, like I said, I'm trying to pull out all the stops on this build so that, you know, it's a reliable build. Okay. Okay, while I let that dry, I'll figure out the size of screw I need, because the screw is going to come through this bottom plate, through the arm, through the main bottom plate, through the TPU Nano mount, and then through the flight controller. So I need a screw that long, and that's how it's going to be stacked together. Okay, after planning, I think I'm finally able to start building. The last hurdle I had was I figured out for the stack, to go through the arms and the stack, I need 25 millimeter M3s, so I had to buy them, because the M3 kit I have only has 20 millimeter M3s. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosely put all 4 in with small screws, and then I'm going to go back and put them in with, full size and Loctite. So let me zoom this out some. Okay, so all the stingers get pointed. Actually, I'm gonna have to look that up. I was trying to go for, oh yeah, I'm calling this, I don't know if I said this yet or not, I'm calling this build Eagle Eyes, since it's digital. And I was trying to go for a bald eagle theme. By doing these by doing half white and half black, and then I tried to put like feathers, but it didn't work out right when I removed the. Okay, there we go, we're finally together. Okay, so now here's the Tracer Nano receiver. I put that E6000, I let it dry for a day, and I put what is it called? Conformal coating on both front and back of the boards. You know what? I think this would be better off printing off in a solid mount, because printing off in TPU is just going to, I can't get a good tight, get it cranked down. So let me go and get this printing off in a solid mount. Okay, while I'm waiting for that to print out, I guess I'll go on to trying to figure out how I'm going to mount the motors. So the adventure I had on how I want to mount the motors is I went on Thingiverse and I found this mount with a skid that I thought was pretty cool, and then I found just a regular bumper. So I printed both out. The bumper just doesn't fit. It could probably be tweaked. It just doesn't fit for some reason. But the one with the skid fit perfectly, and it's designed to have a zip tie down here to hold it up. But I wanted TPU on the sides, but ABS on the bottom for the skid, not TPU. So I ended up modifying the file, and let me see if I have. I modified the file and I just cut off the skid. So I have and I also cut off the zip tie part because I didn't think it was needed. And then I printed the skid separately in, there we go. I printed the skid separately in, uh-oh, it's around here somewhere, in ABS. So one thing I gotta figure out is I gotta figure out the right screw size to have the perfect amount of threads showing out the top here for the motor. Now I tried to, on the Apex, I didn't like how these were always a tight fit, so I tried to make the tolerance a little bigger, which I failed on that apparently, because it still is a bit of a tight fit. I guess I could take a drill bit and ream them out. Sometimes it's better to do that to make it a tight fit and take a drill bit and ream it out. Now I just watched a Drain Man video. He had a nice clean build, and he had a similar setup here with TPU bumpers and skids, but they went and they designed it so that the TPU wasn't underneath the skid, that the skid mounted straight to the carbon fiber, and the TPU had a hole cut out for it, and then they use a zip tie. So 12 is not enough. So I guess we'll have to go to a 16, which would be 4 millimeters. Is that going to be too much? How thick are these? These are only 3 millimeters, so we'll see how it works, but I might have to modify the thickness of this to get that, to get a 16 to protrude the right amount. I had to do that on my Apex build. I had to 3D print these shims. And now it doesn't want to back out because it's so tight. It's a little too long. And the thing is, how much is this going to squeeze down? So I really need to add a millimeter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a millimeter to the skid to make this bolt not protrude too far. So these are all the little details that I was talking about that I want to get figured out before I get it all together. Okay, I printed it out in ABS. Let's see if it fits any better. Well, not that it fits better, that it... There we go. Snaps in there nicely. And then get a zip tie. You know, instead of using a zip tie, sometimes I use this lacing string. I think that's going to be better here for here. Perfect. That works a lot better. Okay, so the back of the quad goes here, so the antennas point towards the back. And these need to be drilled out. Okay, there we go. And then just so I don't, as I'm banging this quad around, so I don't rip off these transmitters before, or antennas before I, okay, there we go. That's the stack with the washers. I think it turned out pretty neat. I'm thinking about going ahead and just soldering up the transmitter, so then that way that isn't flapping around in the breeze. Okay, I chose to wire up the tracer to TXRX serial 4 because 6 is dedicated to the DJI and 7 is dedicated to the telemetry on the Escs, and 4 is right there next to ground and 5 volts. But in hindsight, I might have made this cable a little too tight, but it's nice and neat, I guess. But I realized that there is one thing that I need to do before I get too far into it, is I was planning on putting the cable. You see, the camera cable could go on top, but it'd be kind of loosey-goosey. I was going to put the camera cable underneath the FC, but this connector is kind of wide. I mean, I could try to feed it under there, but it's better to lift the flight controller and put it under. So actually, the next thing I'm going to focus on is hooking up the Vista unit and mounting it. Okay, so I did wire up the Vista unit to the plug, and the plug included the RX for if you're using the Vista unit for your RX for your receiver, which I'm not, but I decided to go ahead and wire it up anyway since the cables were there. This connector wasn't really made for the Vista unit. It was made to plug into the DJI Air unit, but you know, I cut it off to solder it into the Vista unit, and this silicone is not temperature silicone. I mean, it melted really easy. I even put my soldering iron down to 600 degrees and it still melted. So I put a little liquid electrical tape on the connector in there. So I lifted up the flight controller, tucked the wire underneath there and the camera underneath there. And now I went out and I bought a button head kit to bolt the Vista unit to the board there. But the thing about it is, the holes are for M3, but the Vista unit takes M2, so I might have to 3D print a little adapter there. So I don't know if I'm going to use a button head or I also have cap head screws that will do it. So stay tuned. Okay, so I actually had these M2 to M3 adapters designed from when I built my Cinewhoop Shendrone Squirt. So I'm going to use them. And then that's going to go in the bottom here, hopefully. Okay, just like that. Okay, so what I decided to do, I don't know if it's focusing, I decided to snap off the part of the spacer and only use the inner part and then put an M2 washer on there. Okay, I'm starting to have something to show for everything I've done. This TPU mount that came for the adapter for the camera, I'm a little leery about if it's going to last or not, but that won't be a big deal to go back in there and redo that. So I'm going to just keep on pressing forward. But this came out pretty good. And like I said, so far, nice and neat. So tomorrow I'm going to go and start putting on the motors. Okay, I decided to go ahead and just do an unboxing of the DJI goggles. You know, when you spend all this money, you might as well do an unboxing video. The only thing I don't like about going DJI is the fact that it is like kind of corporate. You know, that you had to have their app and you know, they're a corporation, if that makes any sense. Okay, so I'm not going to use this because there's a power cord, USB-C, antennas, and this is the battery. Yep. So I decided if I was going to go DJI, I was going to, I probably should get this out, the manual. I decided if I was going to go DJI, I was going to go all out. Oh, that's a nice little case. So I already went and I bought upgrades for the goggles. Oh. That's it. That's pretty much all that's in the box there. So I decided to buy the Axie HD kit for it. What's this thing coming off? So might as well put them on before the front gets all covered up in junk. I do have some isopropyl alcohol. The information on which one's transmitted and which one's received on the antennas are kind of confusing because I guess they changed it up between V2 and V1. But from my understanding on V2, it's transmit, receive, transmit, receive. So they're kind of catty corner. So you want to have the patches either both on the top or both on the bottom. So I'm going to put both of them on the bottom. Okay, there we go. And then I decided to get new foam pieces. Although I still have no idea how this middle foam piece works. And then me going all out, I decided to actually get real prescription lenses. So I got these VR waves. Okay, there we go. Lenses are installed. So let me see how it fits to my face with the lenses in. Yep, plenty of clearance. I have long eyelashes. That's why I wanted to check that. And then another thing I bought to upgrade was I bought the Escs strap for it. And I decided to buy this lithium ion pack because I wanted to have two battery packs. So I have the regular DJI pack and this lithium ion pack that supposedly has a protection circuit just for DJI in it. And so then that way I'll never run out of battery when I'm out and about. And of course I had to buy a cable for it. This pack was a little too heavy, so I didn't buy the short cable, I bought the long cable. I noticed a lot of people do this to keep you from pulling out the plug, so I think I might do that too. Okay, we're ready to start motor and Esc assembly. I got a little sidetracked and I didn't like the yellow TPU, so I bought this translucent red TPU to just change things up a little bit. And we'll start with this one. I want to start with the rear one so I can get the RX antennas in place, secured. I bought a whole bunch of M16 screws so I would have plenty, since I landed on the fact that that's going to be my motor screws. Okay, I'm still working out the details on the skids. I had to make them even taller to accept the M3x16 screw, which in hindsight 14 probably would have worked better, but my kit didn't have 14s. But it is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the ESCs. So I soldered the ESCs up already. I put a capacitor in there, and I put a TVS diode right there. And then you have PWM and telemetry, or signal and telemetry. And then I coated both sides of the board with conformal coating. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to keep this part of the board exposed, so then that way it dissipates heat a lot better. That's the plan. So I'm not going to shrink wrap the whole board because I wanted to dissipate heat, but I am going to shrink wrap these connections and the capacitor so it's all one unit, so nothing wiggles around. Okay, I am a little concerned that I'm going to short something out, because I usually almost always put them in, put it in heat shrink, but we'll see. Okay, that's what it's going to look like. Okay, so that's what my solder job looks like. Man, it is real close. These two are real close, but I guess as long as they're not touching, they seem to be making good connection. I tend to find that it's better not to try to redo things. So that's what the Esc is going to look like. I'm going to continue on and do the other three. Okay, so these are the skids that I made. Decided to make the skids out of ABS so they actually skid kind of like the Apex. Although I noticed last night I was watching some other build video and I guess people are commonly making skids out of TPU. But I decided to make them separate. So Butterfingers tonight. Okay, I've been bad about vlogging this, but I got all the motors on. I do need to make a change to the skids. I think I'm going to modify the skids to accept a washer underneath. I think that'll be a much better design. But for putting this one together, they worked out. But in the future, when I print more, I'm going to modify them. So I went and I put liquid electrical tape on all the high voltage connections there on the board, and I finished covering the top of the flight controller with conformal coating, being sure I didn't cover the button or didn't cover the barometer. There's a barometer on this board. But yeah, I'm just going to let it dry, but it should be ready for the first power up. It's all wired up. Oh yeah, I put the buzzer in there, and I did connect the buzzer with double-sided electrical tape, but that's a solid piece of carbon underneath there. It's not a hole, kind of like how the Apex is carved out there. That's a solid piece of carbon. So, and I use that 3M high strength tape, so that's why I'm fine with doing that. But as far as the layout of this board, remember how I said I didn't want anything to like pop out when you take the top plate off? I achieved that. The top plate's going to come on nice and clean with the way I have everything laid out. And yeah, I'm really happy with this build. And these Holy Row boards and ESCs are real easy to solder to. So we'll see how they hold up. Okay, so I got it all set up here. I decided to drag out my old laptop and put the newest Betaflight configurator on it. The flight controller shipped with 4.1, so I put flash 4.2 on it. And then now we're ready for the Blackmagic smoke test. Now, if I had 1 million subscribers, I would just go straight into the Blackmagic smoke test. But since I don't have 1 million subscribers, I have a smoke stopper. And I ohmed out the connector, so we shouldn't have any problems, but we'll see. One thing I have noticed though, so this smoke stopper does 1 amp or 2 amps, so we'll do it 1 amp first, but I have noticed in the past on these 6S's, they'll trip out 1 amps when it's chiming the motors. Okay, so without further ado, here we go. Oh, I forgot the smoke stopper actually has a start button. Okay, without further ado, here we go. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, usually when it does the beep beep beep, I've had it trip out. On my other builds, I had it tripped out before. So no Blackmagic smoke. Also, I have a fan here because everyone says the Vista units get real hot. So I got a fan here to keep the Vista unit cool. And we do have a green light on the Vista unit, so. One, two, three, four. Okay, the time has come for the maiden. It's all put together. and I'm super happy with how it turned out. My goal for everything to be nice and neat turned out to be come to fruition. Everything is nice and neat. I can take the top plate off without having to worry about anything else coming with it, which all my other builds I haven't been able to do that. And then I'm trying these new props that Staceman recommended, and I think he got the recommendation from Flowrider FPV, these GemFan Freestyle F4s, so I'm trying them. 1800 kV motors, Vista unit, all digital. GoPro Hero 7, and I turned stabilization off just to see how it is. I'm going to go and I'm going to do the maiden flight, and I'm going to follow Chris Rosin's filter tune, and then once I finish that, I'm going to follow his PID tune. I did put my rates in here, so my rates are on the quad, and but I'm going to go and fly a pack for the maiden, and then I'm going to fly a short pack to get the data I need for the filter tune, and to try to do that. I am going to do the maiden with Chinese Hobby Line 1100. And let's put this on the scale and see how much it weighs. Okay, on the scale, it weighs 852 grams. So it's a heavy one. Definitely heavier than my Apex build. But the Stingy frame's a solid frame. The only thing I need to do is the front bumper I printed out was, I guess, for the V1, so it was too wide. So I need to design a front bumper in TPU. I want to put that in there to help protect the camera. But other than that, it's totally complete. So I'm ready to try this out, try DJI for the first time. So let's go out. I want to go out to the Orange Grove and do the maiden. Okay, I'm out here at the Grove and ready for the maiden. I don't know why I'm nervous, but I am. But this will be my first time ever flying with DJI. So here's one last look at the quad before the maiden. So let me turn on all my stuff.
Welcome to Mambo. Switch warning.
See page. Okay, let me turn on the goggles. I have the goggles set to 50 megabits since I'm out here by myself. And I'm gonna fly in the cow field here. That way if I crash, it'll just be into grass. My luck, I'll probably hit a cow pie if I crash. But yeah, I guess we're ready. So let me get the GoPro going. And then I have the Vista set to auto temp control, so it starts recording the DVR as soon as I arm. Okay, the GoPro is recording. Okay, I want to put it on the towel over here in case it goes crazy. It won't hit the, let me arm it real quick. I don't think it's gonna go crazy. It kind of, okay, let's see if I got goggles. Oh yeah, it's definitely in HD. Man, it's kind of crazy looking at it. Oh yeah, never set up my low battery alarm on the Mambo, so I gotta actually watch my battery. But this is just gonna be a easy maiden. This is insane. So with these DJI goggles, I used to, with my Fat Sharks, I had the Attitude V4s. I used to tell people that it was like flying in a dark room watching TV. Like sitting in a dark room watching TV, and it would be like watching a CRT TV. But I would say that with these DJIs, it's like sitting in front of your computer monitor. It's like I'm sitting at my desk right in front of my computer monitor. Man, it's crazy. So I'm not going to try to do the filter tuning. I'm just going to see how it is. Definitely needs to be tuned. There's bounce back there. Yeah, it definitely needs to be tuned. Man, there's nothing like flying a Maiden. As far as if there's latency, I would say I can tell a difference with latency on the. Well, I don't know if it's latency, but when I was going around that tree, it was like the frame rate was low. Let me try power looping the tree again. And I don't know if my current's set up right. I have the current set up to the Esc sensors, not the onboard ADC. And there's no calibration when you set it up to the Esc sensors. So I'm going to have to make sure that I keep track of what the milliamp hours are on each battery, so then when I charge it. Okay, so you see how I'm going short on these power loops? That's because I've been flying the simulator a lot. And when you fly the simulator, that's what happens. You go, the simulator, no matter how much I set it up, the simulator is really floaty. So I end up going short on the power loops in real life. Man, it's insane how clear it is. It's insane. It has a little bit of a low frame rate feel. I wouldn't say it's latency, I would say it's a low frame rate feel compared to flying analog. You see I came up short there. So it says we're at 500 milliamp hours. I would say that's kind of high compared to flight time with my Apexes. But we're at 22 volts. I usually land around 21 volts under load. Like under casual cruising, if it's 21.5, I'll land. Let me see if I can just power loop this tree successfully. I went big. Okay, there's people out in the orange grove. They're doing U-pick today, so I want to stay away from them so I don't scare them. Let's just see what the orange grove. Oh yeah, another thing is, okay, I'm going to land pretty soon here, but I just wanted to point out this little hay shed on FR Sky. As soon as I would get on the other side of this hay shed, I would get low range. Now, as far as my OSD and RSSI, I didn't really understand how to set that up with DJI. So my RSSI says I'm at 30, but full RSSI says 66 when in the actual controller says 99. Oh, so I need to land this because it's at 20.9 apparently. Well, something's beeping. I wonder if that's for low battery. Probably is. I kind of went too low on that battery. Well, that was a successful maiden.
RF signal critical.
Let me check my motor temps. Motors are nice and cool, so don't have to worry about that. Yeah, I kind of took that battery a little too low. I need to set up my alarms, but yeah, it's definitely different flying DJI. I would say I don't see any latency issues. Well, I would say at certain points I saw the frame rate was lower, but I think if I flew it more, I wouldn't even notice it at all. But definitely, man, that picture is so clear. It's amazing. And then no breakup at all. And with this tracer system, like I said, I was able to get on the other side of the hay shed, and it didn't even go into alarm. So that'll be another test, because usually if I stand here, I can only just barely go to the other side of the hay shed, then I get a low RSSI with the FR Sky. So I'm going to have a range test where I try to take it all the way to the other side of the cow field. But yeah, I only brought 2 batteries with me, and then the next battery I'm going to do, it definitely needs to be tuned. So the next battery, I'm going to go and do a filter tune flight. So according to Chris Rosin, all you do is you do snap rolls on all 3 axes, yaw, pitch, and roll. And then you do punch outs, gradual punch outs over 3 seconds. So the next battery, I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to land it. Then we're going to take it back, and I'm